Previously on Research, Rank, Repeat.
It's finally the end of our Ghibli movie ranking. We made it, Hannah. We did it. We finally saw every film the studio has to offer.
I still don't know how I feel about this movie.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, because I teared up.
I did too. And I really think this film would really benefit me to have a second watch through of it. But it just came out. We watched our final film. And now, Hannah, we have the monstrous task of ranking every single film, which is 23? 24 now? It's 24 total. Welcome! This is Research, Rank, Repeat. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alyssa.
I am co-host Hannah.
Today we are back to finally put the Studio Ghibli ranking to rest. We've watched every movie. We've released every episode up to this point. All 24 films have been watched over the span of, if you believe it or not, 40 years this year.
Oh, I thought you meant like we had been watching them for 40 years. I'm like, I'm not 40.
No, I mean that the film started, the first one was 1984, and I was like, if I do the math, that's 40 years.
That
is
a
long time. So we're covering movies for 40 years, but we're here to do the ranking, and we're joined by a special guest.
We do have a special guest.
Yes, special guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Andy. I'm a friend from college for Alyssa and Hannah. Met Alyssa when we were working in a plant lab together.
We are also mutual friends with a friend of the podcast, Abby, who's been on for our Halloween episodes, if you've listened to those. Hannah was a great designated driver for us on multiple occasions in college before she could drink.
I was underage, so I couldn't go to the bars, so I just would... Well, I wasn't illegally going to the bars yet, so I would just drive.
Yeah. Pick us
Picked up
up.
from the bars.
It's very nice.
Driven me home a number of times.
I have, yeah. Hopefully I'm a good driver. I don't know.
From what I can remember.
I was going to say, you had alcohol in the system, so perception might be off.
Seemed good at the time.
Yeah. But yeah.
But we asked you to come on because, as we've talked about in the past, you're a big fan of Studio Ghibli. Seen a lot, hadn't seen all the films, but had seen a lot of them. And I think, to put this in perspective, we've talked about this a lot, how long it's taken us to do this, but I think I asked you if you wanted to do this almost 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure it was that long ago.
I think it was 2020.
I think it might have been
several years in the making.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
And I just finished watching one of the movies like 2 days ago.
Ooh,
so I was
nice.
Down to the wire.
Got it done.
Just like we always are.
We're always down to the wire. When we did Fast and the Furious, Hannah and I watched 3 films in one day and then recorded directly after.
No, 3 films before we went and saw a new film.
And saw the 9th one.
So we watched 4 films and then we recorded that
in the same day. So we're really good about just like
time management.
Yeah, to the wire. So that's on par for a podcast. But I'm glad we got to make this work. Glad we were able to get this together. I didn't tell you this beforehand because it's surprise for a guest, but every time a guest is on, we make them speed rank something. And it's usually related to the topic at hand and also general interests. So talk to Hannah, had discussion, and no stress. Like, it's supposed to be just like whatever comes to mind, whatever you feel, just go with the gut feeling. Today, I would like you to speed rank the select Studio Ghibli pets / creatures as which you would most want to be your pet or companion. So, as they are, they exist. So if they can talk in real life. Like they exist as they are in the films. So here are the 5 we've chosen. We have Gigi from Kiki's Delivery Service. So can talk to you in English. We have Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro. We have the Heron from The Boy and the Heron. I believe it's like an elk. The elk the main character rides on in Princess Mononoke. It's like that elk deer thing. And then last are the little soot balls from Spirited Away, the little tiny soot balls that are hanging out with the guy with 8 arms. Yeah.
As soon as you said that, the first thing that popped up was the soot sprites, like in my mind. So I feel like
Okay.
those have to be number one.
Okay.
Extremely cute. I have like little ones, like little like models of them in my PC over there.
Oh.
So I feel like I have to choose those as number one. Number two, I'll say Gigi. I feel like normally when animals talk in a movie, I'm not a big fan of it, but I feel like that movie does it well and he's cute. So go with Gigi. Third, I'll say Totoro. Just did a rewatch of that movie too, and I feel like he's so like snuggly, comfy, good vibes. I'll probably go with the elk for four. Don't have like super strong feelings one way or the other, but I feel like the heron is not like a vibe I'd want in like my everyday life. So I'll go for the heron for five.
That's about, I think, what I would pick. Maybe I would have
Yeah.
swapped Gigi and the Soot Monsters, but pretty similar to what I was thinking
Yeah.
while creating. I was like, I wanted to have a nice spread of like different types of animals. I thought about adding the Baron from The Cat Returns, like so you could have a talking, like a full proper talking cat, but Hannah hates the Baron, so
Don't like
I
the
had
Baron.
to, it's like Hannah's not gonna be happy if I put the Baron on the list.
I have strong feelings about that movie as well.
Okay.
So.
See, I don't have strong feelings.
I
Hannah
do.
did. Hannah had strong feelings about The Cat Returns.
Yeah.
It was
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But yes, thank you. Thank you for participating in speed ranking. Always
Mhm.
great. We want nobody to be prepared because it's better that way. It's better to just whatever feels right. So, since you didn't join us for our like 6 hours of discussions of these films, because we were not going to make you sit through all of that. Also, when we add a third person, it increases the time up by like an extra hour. So we're like, okay, I think if we do the rankings, it'll situate itself well. But we would love to know like what your background is with the studio. Like, how old were you when you started watching them? And then also, if you're like, how are you watching the films? Like, like subbed versus dubbed, like in Japanese or English. Just for reference, Hannah and I kind of went back and forth. Like growing up, we watched them in English, and then during this watch through, I would kind of swap between Japanese and English. So, just anything with that within that you'd like to share.
Yeah, so I think the first movie I saw was Spirited Away, rented it from the local library when I was like 9 or 10, so it like really hit hard. I was like, this is a fantastic movie. And then I feel like pretty soon after that, I also watched like Kiki's Delivery Service and like some of those other ones that are like more of like the big popular ones. There's probably like a good half of them, honestly, that I hadn't seen until we like sat down to do this, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna grind it out. And I have watched all of them in English other than Ocean Waves, just because it was only in Japanese. But I kind of want to go back and like watch some of them in Japanese. Like normally, like if I watch anime, I watch subbed. But like just with these, since I'd always watched like the dub versions, just like stuck with that throughout.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of the times it was like ones that I had already seen before. I was watching those in Japanese. And then also depending on time, like sometimes I was like, I can't 100% focus right now. So I need to just have it in English and the subtitles. But I need both going at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, so sounds pretty similar to us in that like I don't know what the first movie we saw was because we rented them from Blockbuster. They had them for some reason at our local Blockbuster. So we like A Castle in the Sky, Spirited Away. We did have on VHS, so that one we did watch quite a bit. My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service. We saw all those. Like those are ones we rented. So those ones I feel like are very sentimental to me in that way. We'll see how the ranking shapes out having that. But yeah, I would say, I think, Hannah, you had seen less than me, but I probably had only seen a fourth of these films before we started. But some of these, like Ocean Waves, I've never heard of it before this point. It was definitely a new film.
Yeah, Ocean Waves was one where I didn't even realize it was on the list until this week. And then I was like, crap, gotta watch it on Tuesday.
It is like a little secret film. Especially because it was like planned to be a TV movie as well. So it feels very like teenage drama in that way, and like different than normally the normal types of stories we would see, I feel like. What was the bootleg? Oh, the secret Grave of the Fireflies footage that we located on somewhere.
Oh, you found a YouTube
I did, and it was so bad. It was such
version,
poor
and
quality.
I ended up finding like definitely a legal version.
Super legal.
That was better quality.
Yeah,
But
mine was
everything
not good
else was
quality.
on Max.
Yeah, everything else
Yeah.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
Available for
Yeah.
us. Thank you, Max.
Love Max. Wish we were sponsored by them.
No, because
Love
their
them so
quality,
much.
their player is just
Yeah,
not
they're
it.
not good.
It's not it now. Just the issues with the subtitles and the getting it to stream on a TV, Hannah. Oh, they're both there. I see both the cats.
Yeah, they've invaded.
I see. They're here.
They're here.
All right. But on that note, we are now finally ready to do our ranking. This was, I think, the hardest ranking I've ever done on the show. I think probably about half of it could change tomorrow if I just decided to maybe swap some things around. So take this list as a non-definitive view. But as always, our opinion is the only one that matters. If you don't like our opinions, send us an email. I'd love to hear it because, as we say in our description of our podcast, we have trash opinions.
Yeah.
So you have to listen to them.
Send your hate mail to Alyssa directly. Her email is
one of my 6 emails. Send them to my spam mail.
Your spam.
Can have it. r3podcast@gmail.com. Hannah manages all of that, so please, she'll be waiting and watching.
I will. Why don't we go in alphabetical order?
Oh,
so you start,
okay.
and then Andy, and then I'll go last.
Okay, we could do that. Alphabetical.
Okay. Yeah. That works for me.
That works for me too. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Starting from number 24. To no one's surprise, number 24, Earwig and the Witch. Hannah and I talked a lot about how horrible this film was. It's not it. It's not it from the studio. This is the Cars 2 of Studio Ghibli. And on that note, I don't have to say anything else.
That movie is so unfortunate.
Yeah, when you texted me, I was like, yep, yeah, this is it.
I appreciated the heads up to not watch that one last.
I did. I told Andy because she told me she had a couple left, and I was like, if this is one of your films, do not save it for last. I'm like, you don't want to end on that note. So yes,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want you to be disappointed to end on that.
Also, you said 24 and my list is 23. So now I'm concerned.
Oh no.
Well, it's okay.
Well,
either way, we'll
figure it out.
We'll figure out what movie it is when we get there, and that's also fine. Like, one movie is not going to make a difference.
I wonder if it's did you do Naushka of the Wind? Because that's technically not.
Oh, actually, I watched it and I don't think I rated it. So
Okay,
I was gonna say because technically that's not like part of the studio, but we counted it.
Okay, figured
right.
it out. It was
Great.
that one.
Excellent.
Okay. Can you rank it somewhere, or do you want to just leave it?
Yeah, I threw it in there. I
Okay.
feel like I know where I would slot it too.
Okay.
I just like blacked out that it existed.
Oh, that's fine.
That's fine.
But I
We
haven't seen it.
I did that one time. We started a recording and got to the ranking, and I was like, I didn't even rank them. Like, I just forgotten to rank like 5
we had to like
movies.
pause.
So we had to pause. I was like, Hannah, vamp for a minute while I like do my. I was like, I just forgot to do it. So it happens. No worries.
Or the time that we did the what was it? I ranked all
the states.
We did the 50 state
Oh my God, the
mottos, and I thought we were
mottos.
ranking all 50, and we only were ranking.
We were doing 10.
10, so I ranked all 50 of them, and Alyssa's like, what do you mean it took you forever? There's only
Yeah.
10 of them, and I was like, I ranked all 50.
Yeah,
I
we
took so much time.
We decided
The
to do the
dedication.
top 5 best, top 5 worst, and Hannah did all 50, and I'm like, what do you mean you did all 50? I was like, I didn't. I was like, I thought we were just doing 10.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of miscommunication. It happens.
Okay, so we can jump to Andy then for her 24th, since we're not skipping
Yes,
her now.
we can. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure it will come as no surprise that I also did Earwig and the Witch as 24. I feel like I had the same thing that like you guys were saying when you were watching it, where it gets to like I paused it and I was like, there's like 6 minutes left of this movie. Like where is this going? Like, I didn't realize the like author had died for the book that it was based
Yeah.
on. But I'm like, still, if you're gonna adapt it to a movie, like you can't just slap some kind of ending on there.
Mhm.
Like it's so
Yeah.
abrupt and so horrible to look at.
Yeah.
It is visually unappealing. Yeah.
It's number 24 for me also. No shock. It's the only Ghibli movie where I don't want to eat the food in the movie. And I think
Yes.
that's very
Yes.
telling because the animation sucked. It was bad. Even the plot and like just all of it was bad. It missed on every level, unfortunately. Yeah. Glad we
Yeah.
all agree. It's the
Thumbs
Cars
down.
2
Yeah.
of Studio Ghibli.
The Cars too. All right. It's number 23. I have Tales from Earthsea. Now, I would not put this at the level of Earwig and the Witch by any means. And honestly, I think critically, it's way harsher. Critics are way harsher, and like audience was way harsher on this film than I think it deserved. Because Hannah and I had talked about this when we went over the movie. However, I just found it to be like boring, is maybe the way I'd put it. And like story was a bit boring and it was a bit jumbled together because I think they included like 3 books worth of stories into one movie and it just like didn't flow super well. And plus I got confused about the dragon bit at the end where I was like, is she a dragon? Why are there dragons? What's going on? So I remember the ending not being super entertaining either, but because of that, it's number 23. Earwig and the Witch is down here, and Tales from Earthsea is up here. Like there's a huge divide between those 2 films.
I feel like that's a hot take, to be honest. But yeah, my 23rd was Return of the Cat. I just thought it was just too weird that she was like gonna marry the cat, was all in on it. I feel like maybe if I'd seen the movie as like a child, I might have liked it more because
Yeah.
I was like really into like those Warriors books as a kid and
Yes.
like cats in
Yes.
general. So I'm like,
Yep.
I might have liked it as a kid, but like watching it as an adult, it was not for me.
Yeah. All right. Number 23, Pom Poko.
Mhm.
I lost my mind when I learned there was a Ghibli movie all about raccoons. I was so excited. And then the movie started and I was like, I don't like this. There was raccoon balls. I had to look at a ball sack, which was just not great.
Can't forget
I
about
just,
the boat, the ball sack boat.
oh yeah, the
Can't
man
forget-
used his ball sack as a boat. That was disturbing. I just don't think that this movie I don't think it has like the impact because it's all about environmentalism and like the impact it has on nature and on like a species of animal. But I feel like Ghibli's done so many other environmental movies better. And I also felt like it was kind of boring. It was like a sad movie, but it was also a boring sad movie. And that's kind of just like a no-go for me. Like I like a sad, entertaining movie. Yeah, it was not my thing. I love raccoons, but not in this way.
Technically, they're Tanuki. Just,
Okay,
just to
well,
clarify, but
I like Tanuki, but not in this way.
it's like Tom Nook.
Yes.
Pretty sure you put Tom Nook on your top 5 worst Animal Crossing
Yeah, I
characters.
did because I
Yeah.
said he's just out for money. He wants all the money. I understand that's his job, but man,
Knows what he wants.
Yeah.
he does, which I don't
Just
respect.
trying to run a business, Hannah.
I don't care.
He built you a home.
I'm trying to have a life. I'm trying to provide for my family, and he's trying to get money from me.
Number 22, I have Ocean Waves. This is another one that I think is a perfectly fine film. It just felt a bit to me like a teenage drama. I don't know, not Pretty Little Liars level, but we're in that like OC, One Tree Hill. Hannah knows that very well. Story of One Tree Hill. Like that kind of a vibe, which is fine. But also, I'm really disappointed about the friends not being gay. Like, that still bothers me. Like, we really were into that relationship being a thing and it wasn't. And that's fine. But I think I would have enjoyed it much more if that was a real thing. And I think some of the characters weren't super, like, engaging. It was fine film, but just not for me. Not for me.
Feel ya. Dude had way more like charisma with his friend than with the girl. Like for
Yes.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
I think this one might be like a controversial take. I have 22 as my neighbors, the Yamadas.
Okay.
I didn't even finish this movie, if I'm being real with
Mm,
y'all. I got about like an
that's
hour
fine.
in and was like, I can't.
Oh.
I don't like anyone in this family. I thought the art style was cool, so I think it gets points there. I just didn't, I don't know, I didn't like the characters very much, which might be more of a me thing than like the movie thing, because I feel like people like that movie. I just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah. I don't think that's like a super hot take because it's like one of the lowest performing at the box office, like of the studio's films. So like audience wise, I don't think it was super popular.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I can totally see also because it's like the vignette, like small style, like that only works for me in certain instances. And I definitely watched this movie, I think handed it to in more than one chunk. Like I broke it into like 2 sessions or something.
Yeah. I
So
watched it like over 3 days, I think, because I
yeah.
had the same problem. I was like, I can't sit here and watch this whole thing.
I feel like I was like, I'll come back to it, and then I just never did,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now we're
Fair.
here. So
Fair.
So yeah, that's very fair.
It's fair. It's coming up soon for me anyway, spoiler. So
Yeah, I mean it's also not very far up from me. A
yeah.
couple more up. We'll head up a little bit
Yeah.
more. You'll find it.
Okay, number 22 was Porco Rosso. I do not like this movie at all, and I know it's scored and
Yeah.
reviewed pretty well. Maybe it's because I hate men, and there was a lot of men in this movie, and there was too much masculine energy. And like Ghibli's always done really strong female characters. In this movie, they somehow like don't. It reminds me of like the scene in Marvel when all the women come together and it's like we're strong and we're powerful, and it felt very forced. I feel like this movie does that where it forces like these female characters. I don't know, I just found the movie kind of boring, and it felt a little bit like it had been done before with Castle in the Sky with like the Sky Pirates. They kind of reused that idea, I felt like. And it just didn't have this like strong identity of knowing what it wanted to be, which I feel like a lot of Ghibli's films do pretty well. But mostly I just don't like men, and that's why this movie suffers. I'm
That's
being
fair.
honest. That's what it
No, that's
is.
fair. Hannah and I, we talked about how we were like, it's not, didn't vibe, didn't vibe with it, even though I know it's like really, people really like this film. So it'll be coming up soon. Number 21, I have Pompoko. It was time. I wish I could like this movie more, is the way that I feel about it, because it has elements of things that I like. Like I also was obsessed with the Warrior Cat books, so I like any animal movies. I was like my favorite films ever. Drawn to that generally, like animal characters, but it was not it. I think you were right when you said like it's very focused on environmentalism, but it also is like very both comical and also like serious at the same time, and the tonal shifts didn't quite work between like in one scene you have all of these yeah, the Tanuki are like all dying to protect their forest, and then another scene an old man turns his ball sack into a boat and sails into the afterlife. Like those are in the same movie, like in the same time frame. And like I think the narration was also not like, I don't know, like that some elements of it didn't work for me. It was one of those films where I kept checking the time to be like, okay, how much is left? How much is left? Like I'm just waiting for it to end. It's fine. I think it could have been better. It could have been stronger, but ball sacks, that's just it, it's fine.
yeah, I had similar thoughts about that one. It's coming up
Yeah.
soon. But my for 21, I had The Wind Rises
Mm,
just because it was in my for me it was a little bit boring.
okay.
I
Mhm.
was like, it's very like beautiful to look at, as you'd expect from most Ghibli movies, but I don't know. I think I'm like more into like the fantasy side of Ghibli and
Mhm.
less on like the historical fiction, or not historical fiction, but like historical
Like
storytelling, I guess.
realistic
Yeah.
realism. Yeah,
So I found it a little too dry for me.
that's fair.
Okay, this is probably controversial, but number 21 I have When Marnie Was There.
Yeah, I figured it had a
It's
little.
fully because of the queer bait. I'm going to be honest, it's fully because of that. And me and Alyssa had a very, very long discussion that we cut most of it, and it still was very long in our last episode. But I don't know. It's just, I feel like if they hadn't gone about it the way that they went about it and made it less like this ambiguous weird vibe between them, I think I would have really enjoyed the movie. My biggest problem is that all the things that I liked about the movie were because I thought they were like a romantic relationship vibe going on, and then when I realized that it's like a family member, it suddenly makes all of that weird to me. So yeah, it's because they queer baited me and I'm probably still salty about it, but I didn't put them last. So some credit for that.
I'm surprised you
I
put as high as you did, Hannah. Yeah.
Eh,
I was expecting it to be lower based on the way you talked about it.
I was devastated to find out that that was her grandmother, not a love
Yeah,
interest.
I was so
it
confused. I was like, what?
was. It was a twist I did not see coming.
No.
Mhm.
Certainly something. Yeah, so number 20, I have Porco Rosso. And we've talked about it where it's like, I think this just doesn't connect with me, this type of film. I get the messaging, like men are pigs, right? That's like the whole thing, and like war, and I understand like what the story is and like why people like it and why it's well received. But like Hannah, sometimes if there's just too many men, it's like too much testosterone, kind of like the Fast and the Furious. Too many manly, like manliness thing going on there. It was fine, but just not for me. Not a film for me, I guess, is how I'll put that.
I feel like I need to rewatch that one because I have it ranked like semi kind of like
It,
in the middle.
a
It
lot of
well,
people really
generally a
like
lot of
it
people really
though.
like it. Like it's generally like looking at when we after we watch the film, I usually like go and look at what people say about it, and it's generally really positive. Like people really like the film. So I feel like Hannah and I are outliers in that, and that we that's our hot take is that we're not into it.
I think I don't know, I want to like rewatch it because it's been a couple of years,
Yeah.
but I feel like I went into it thinking I'd hate it and then was like, oh, it's like, kind of funny and like ended up liking it more than I thought. For 20, I had Pompoko. Same, pretty much same thoughts that you guys already said. It was incredibly boring for a movie about a bunch of raccoons that seemed
Yeah.
like it would be more fun than it was. I did say the like scene where they all like kind of get together and like prank the like security guard, I thought was pretty funny, but that I think was like really the highlight of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Number 20, I have Cat Returns. My cats were obsessed with this movie, and I told Alyssa, unfortunately, I was not.
Just
It
the
just was
cats.
such a weird film, and like I think Alyssa described this as a movie that was made for the furries. If I'm remembering correctly.
I did say that, yes.
Okay. The side characters are not at all developed, which is a big issue for me. The plot feels really slow, and it was, if I'm remembering, it was one of the shorter films that the studio has, and it feels very long. It wasn't interesting, and I hated the main character. I know Anne Hathaway played her in the English version, and I normally like Anne Hathaway, but like I said, she was a bitch to the cats, and I don't respect that. I don't respect people who aren't nice to cats, and it was just really weird, and I didn't no leaves me with bad feelings. So no.
Agreed. Number 19, The Cat Returns. I feel like I didn't hate it as much as you did. I liked the main character fine. She was fine. My main draw was the Baron was a lot like Professor Layton, and so like that parallel made me happy. Big fan of Professor Layton games growing up, so he's very a gentlemanly cat. But it is a bit odd. Like there's a lot of marrying a cat and that she's slightly into a cat that looks slightly huge. I don't know, just like too much like we're pushing the boundaries that I'm not interested in. And it was really short and yet felt very long at the same time. I agree. I remember that being a thing. I think I watched this in Japanese, so I didn't even get Anne Hathaway. I feel like I missed out on that. But mainly I remember there were these like bodyguard cats that were like throwing people out of the way when the king showed up at her house, and I thought that was funny. But otherwise, yeah, I feel like it wasn't super memorable of a film.
Feel that. I had for 19, I had Ocean Waves. It just doesn't feel like a Ghibli movie. Like it definitely feels like it was like a made for TV type of movie. I really also thought, well, I didn't think that because I knew going in that it was like in the 90s, but I was like, this dude has way more chemistry with his friend than he does with
Yeah.
this girl. And I feel like I could like feel the bi panic, like when his friend and the girl like each other. And like, oh,
Yes.
both your crushes
And then
are
the punch.
going
Yeah, and
out.
then punches him. I know.
I also like gasped when he slapped her so hard after she
Mm.
slapped him. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God. So
Ooh.
yeah, there was like the drama, but overall I felt like wasn't, I don't know, it didn't have a lot going on that I would want to like rewatch or anything, which I feel like I weigh movies pretty heavily on like rewatchability too.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. All right, 19, I have Tales from Earthsea. This movie was rated horribly, and me and Alyssa both said that we did not agree with how harshly they rated it. I believe it was rated lower than some of the Ice Age
It was
movies.
like 30%,
Yeah,
like 2.5 stars, like really
yeah,
low, like surprisingly. Yeah, worse than some of the Ice Age films that are
which is like
deserving to be
not,
rated that
yeah.
low.
Yeah.
I think my main issue with this movie was that it was a bit confusing and like hard to follow the plot. I think it also like maybe went on a little bit too long. I will say the animation was really cool. I really liked some of the stuff they did in this movie. And it was kind of refreshing to have like this different take on the studio because I felt like this movie was pretty different. It was sort of like this medieval vibe and that was something the studio really hadn't done. But yeah, I just think it was a little bit disjointed and they didn't fully explain things, which is why it kind of gets a little bit lower for me.
Number 18, I have My Neighbor the Yamadas. I agree. I think it is certainly a unique take for the studio having like the vignette style. I think some of the animation style was really interesting. Like I remember specifically there was like that one scene where that dad was like trying to fight motorcycle guys and like the animation style changed and it was really interesting like style change that I liked a lot. I like the family dynamic. But I agree that it's not as strong of a story as like some of the other movies are, just because it's like broken up into small little segments. But I liked the family dynamic is I think what I liked the most about the film.
Fair enough. I, for 18, had From Up on Poppy Hill. I feel like this one started really strong. I thought it was going to be like a surprise one that I liked a lot. And then like the incest plot line hit and I was like, what is going on in this movie? And then she's like, I still kind of want to hit it though. And I was like, girl, that's so weird. And then they were like, oh, it's fine because they're not brother and sister. And it's like, but I still have like that weird taste in my
Yes.
mouth from it that I couldn't like recover from. And then like you guys had mentioned too, like it kind of like really diverted you from like the main plot of they're like trying to save that clubhouse thing. So I feel like the first half was pretty strong, but just crashed and burned about partway through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed. Number 18, I have Ocean Waves. I agree with what both of you said. Like you said, it doesn't feel like a movie from the studio that you would see. It's just very high school drama, very like soap opera-y. Again, the not having them be together was a really disheartening to me. It kind of took away from the movie because I didn't feel like him and the female character had that great a chemistry. Their story didn't feel that like authentic or real. And yeah, I did like the music a lot. That was one of the like things that I enjoyed, but I wouldn't watch this movie again. It's not, to me it's not rewatchable, and I also put a high emphasis on like, is this a movie I would want to watch again? So yeah, it's number 18.
Yeah, so number 17, I have From Up on Poppy Hill. I agree with pretty much everything you said, in that if we had followed more closely to like the boys' clubhouse plot, like that stuff was really interesting to me. I really liked that dynamic, but once we started getting into like weird relationship incest, maybe not, maybe not, that just lost me. Like the ending was really abrupt. There was a weird like this is my dad, but I'm adopted, but this is my dad, but this is your dad. Let's go talk to a ship captain who's going to happen to be here for 5 minutes, and then you'll really know your dad. Like it was very convoluted, just a little too much. I agree. I never like got back into it after we introduced an incest plot. Like that was just, that was the end for me. So I agree with everything you said there. It
Never
ruined
really
the
recovered
film.
from the incest. Um, 17, I have only yesterday. I quite liked a lot of like the flashbacks to when she was younger and liked that they like actually addressed like girls having periods in a movie for like young people. All the parts of her as an adult were a little odd for me, I feel like. I feel like it was like the driest flirting, like least sexy flirting I've ever experienced in my life. It's like, what is this romance story? And she also just seemed like an 85-year-old woman trapped in like a 27-year-old's body. She'd be like, "Oh, golly gee." So I don't know. I was like, it was fine. Don't have like too much negatives, but I don't know. I feel like the flashback parts were like the strong point of that movie.
It's fair.
It's fair. 17, I went with My Neighbors, the Yamadas. I think that I like it because it has this like different style and this cool animation. And I did like the transitions between the little vignettes. But again, I do think it was too long. And I think that it's hard to rank this one because it feels so much different than the rest of the movies. But yeah, it was just a little bit too boring, and I did have to watch it in chunks, so that kind of took away from the experience for me.
Yeah. At number 16, I have When Marnie Was There. And I did not hate this film as much as Hannah did. Certainly, the plot twist of Marnie being her grandmother definitely changed the type of story it was. But it didn't like bother me that much that it like ruined the movie for me in terms of like their relationship. I thought it was an interesting take on like a main character. 'Cause I feel like a lot of times they write these like really strong female characters, and even though there may not be like, I feel like Chihiro starts off as very scared, and she's also a child, but then grows into the character. I kind of felt like it was the same with this character where she was like kind of mean and like antisocial. She called a girl a fat pig, which I still can't get over. Like that, I cannot get over that. But I liked a lot of the story elements. I thought they were interesting. I liked that I wasn't really sure what was going on for a while because I was like, are we doing time travel or are we like what's happening? Like, is the house like a time travel vessel? Like, what's going on? So there were like certain elements of it that I did really like, but it's not like a favorite. But I did like the movie. I thought it was a solid film. We're kind of getting to the point where I'm like, pretty much everything here on up is solid. It's just matter of preference, is kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I agree that pretty much everything from here on up, I wouldn't feel like bad about rewatching again or like recommending to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like some of the other ones I would hesitate.
Yeah.
But for 16, I had The Secret World of Arietti. I thought it was like fine. I don't have like a ton of negatives or like anything like jarring, but it was just kind of like simple, cute. I liked like Amy Poehler and Will Arnett being like some of the VAs for like the English version. But yeah, I don't have like too much
What did you
really
think
to
of
say about
David
it.
Henry as the boy?
I don't even think I realized that it was him, to be
Okay.
honest. And I was like such a simp for him in Wizards of Waverly Place. Like that was one of my like original childhood crushes.
Ah, that's fair. Yeah, I could not get past that. I remember his voice. I was like,
You were
"Ugh."
so mad about
Oh,
like
I
his
was
voice
mad.
acting,
And
and I was like, okay.
you'll hear about
I
that soon.
listened in or I did the Japanese version, so I didn't have that experience, but yeah. Okay, number 16 I have from Up on Poppy Hill. Yeah, it was just a lot, and it was chaotic and weird, and the plot was kind of jumpy. And I think my one of my biggest issues besides having the weird incest plot is that the two stories didn't really mesh together, and I think that was because I was so distracted by what was happening. I do think it's good at catching your attention because of how shocking
Yeah,
the plot is. I will say it's just there's too much happening and it's too weird to take it to no, it's too weird. I don't like it.
fair. Yeah, I for number 15, I also have Secret World of Arietti. I agree. It's I think the first half works better for me than the second half of the film. I like the way they framed a lot of the like them being in the house and like borrowing things and that kind of stuff. But then once we introduced the sickly child boy, voiced by David Henry, my interest started to leave for some of it. I just like listening to it in English, it just like I wasn't sold on him as this boy. He's just too depressed. I know the character's supposed to be sad because he maybe will die getting a surgery, but maybe just like a little, give it a little more. But yeah, it was a fine film. I really liked the soundtrack. I liked that they had like a Celtic influence, and that felt pretty different from a lot of the other music that the studio has done. So it felt pretty distinct. But yeah, solid film. Just I wish it would have been better in the second half than the first half.
Hmm. I have 15 as Tales from Earthsea, which I don't know. I'm like, maybe I didn't like hate it as much as everybody else that like reviewed it,
Yeah.
which like you guys said too. Like, I don't know. I didn't think it was quite as bad as like all the reviews of it were, and I liked that it had that like more medieval like D&D type setting feel
Yeah.
to it, which was like pretty different for Studio Ghibli. And I liked some of the characters. Like I feel like the plot got kind of lost along the way in a lot of areas where like I feel like it could have been good or like better than it was. But yeah, I feel like I liked some of the characters. Like Sparrowhawk was kind of like a zaddy as a wizard. If that's not
I
weird
think
to say.
so. I think that's fair. I think that's
It's
fair
fair.
for
And I
me to
feel like the
say.
villain was like genuinely creepy, so
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah.
very unsettling.
Willem Dafoe. Corn. What was his name? Corn something.
I
It's
have
like
no
it was like
idea.
corn.
I
Did I
can't
call him
remember.
cornbread or something? I don't
Yeah, you
remember.
had a name for him.
I
I
had a
can't
name
remember
for
what
him.
it
I think it was
was.
cornbread or something.
Yeah.
Either way, he's whispering ASMRing it at you, and I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then at the end when he's like the main character's like, "Oh, I need to go and like atone for my crimes," basically. I'm like, dude, they're probably
Yeah,
gonna like hang you. This is like
Yeah.
medieval days. You stabbed the king.
right.
Like, I don't, you might as well just run off. Like it's
Yeah.
all good.
Might as well just stay here, like hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
the one thing that I did think like watching it is it was refreshing to have like a different kind of time period, like a medieval, because we generally were not seeing stuff like that. Like we definitely had some films like set in like past, but more like Japanese past history and not so much like more of like an English European medieval type setting. So I
Yeah.
do remember thinking that it was a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Okay, number 15, I have The Secret World of Arrietty. I did like the adventure aspect. It kind of reminded me of when we watched Wall-E because of how much I liked the first half and then how much it didn't enjoy the second half. Like it felt like two separate movies because it got to the second half and it got really jarring and weird. But I did like the relationship between the main character and her dad. The ending felt kind of rushed, I feel like, and I don't know. I just think that if I was ranking it based off the first half alone, it would be a lot higher in my ranking. The second half just did not do it for me at all.
All right, I think from this point onward is where it got really hard for me.
Yeah.
Number 14, I have Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. This surprised me because I didn't think I would have it this low, but I did watch it again because Han and I had watched it in the summer of 2022. So I hadn't seen it in like a year and a half, and I just wasn't as into it the second time as I was the first time. I still think it's a good movie, and I really like a lot of the characters, and you can kind of definitely see the influence on a lot of those characters into future films. Like I feel like Princess Mononoke draws a lot from this movie, for sure, and some of the other ones. I like the plot being that it's like this post like apocalyptic type world with all these spores. Like it feels very Last of Us, like in that type of sense, but like the main character is really interesting. I like that she's like researching and also is beating up people, has a cute little pet. But I remember like thinking some of the stuff at the Ohm, like the bug things, like I felt like could have been a little better. And then I also hate children singing, and there's a lot of children singing near the end, and that kind of like ruined the ending for me. Yeah, I don't know. I was surprised that I like originally had it a bit higher, but then when I went back to watch it, and I kind of was like, maybe this is about midway is where it feels right. So that's where I ended up putting it.
Yeah. I share your hatred for children singing in movies.
Good,
That was
good.
with Earwig and the Witch, the way the music went, sometimes it felt like they were about to burst into song, and I was like, is this gonna be a musical? Like
Yeah.
I kept getting
Spare
scared
me.
about that.
Please spare me.
Yeah. But for 14, I had Porco Rosso. I think I remember liking it. I've only seen it once and it was like a couple years ago. So I do kind of want to do a rewatch and see like if I would still feel that way. But I remember going into it, I was like, I'm not interested in this. I don't want to watch a movie about a pig. Like I'm not into it. And I remember thinking it was like funnier than I thought it was gonna be and like more like entertaining. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of interested to do like a rewatch of that one now after like hearing your guys' takes on it. But I remember liking
Our
it
hot
okay.
spicy takes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. 14. The Boy and the Heron, which maybe it's a hot take. I don't know. My problem with The Boy and the Heron is this is a movie I saw not that long ago, and I can never remember anything that happened during it. And that seems a bit concerning to me. And I don't know if it's because I just have a bad memory or if it's because I genuinely, it feels forgettable. I remember liking the characters. I remember thinking that like I wish there were stronger side characters though. I don't know, like it was a relief to see this movie after watching Earwig and the Witch and knowing that the studio was still capable of good things. Like that was a
Yeah.
relief because like the animation was really good in this obviously and the music again was good, but I just for some reason I can't remember anything from this movie and that's like there's movies I watched like a year and a half ago that I remember more than this one. So that's kind of why I put it middle of the pack.
Yeah, that seems very fair. Number 13, I have The Wind Rises. I think that this is probably not a movie that I would want to rewatch very often, but I was really drawn to the character, and I can't remember his name right now. It's gone. I don't need to look it up. We'll just pretend you know his name. I really liked his like the story that followed him throughout time, like and his relationships with people and building of planes. I think it was interesting to tell a story. And it's kind of like, I think we talked about it, how it's kind of like Oppenheimer, where it's not necessarily focused on war, but like the effects on the people who are involved, like making things for it. Whereas like he's building planes that were used in war, but he himself is like removed from that. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought a lot of the music was really good. Like the dream sequences were fun too. But yeah, I thought it was a solid film. I enjoyed it, but I think it's maybe not like I don't have a strong desire to rewatch it, I would say, is where I'm at with that.
Mhm. Fair enough. I think for 13, I had Ponyo. I feel like this one's like really cute, like a really good like kid-friendly movie and like probably like leagues above most kids' movies that come out. I wasn't like super crazy about it, but really liked it for kind of like a simple little like adventure story.
Yeah. I put Ponyo's number 13 too. And the movie's kind of wild. Like there's some weird stuff that happens, but yeah, it's just very cute and it's like it's interesting because like there's not really a villain in this movie. It's kind of just this story about these two kids and like their relationship and growing up. And there's not any really we talked about how like some of these movies that are kind of made more for kids have some of these really like adult themes or like really kind of underlying like sadness. And I feel like this movie doesn't really have that. It's kind of refreshing just to get a movie that's like, oh, this is nice, this is cute, and someone's not about to die. Like someone doesn't have cancer. So it was nice to have that. And it just kind of like reminds me of like Finding Nemo and like some of those kind of movies that are just fun to watch.
Yeah, number 12, I have Ponyo. So all right around the same spot for all of us there. Yeah, I agree. It's a cute movie. It is wild. I love how much she loves ham. She's so passionate about ham. I can respect that. I'm not a ham person myself, but appreciate the enthusiasm. I like that the fact that like the fate of the world depends on like two 5-year-olds essentially, which is wild, but I like a lot of the characters in it. I think it's fun. I think it's pretty creative. I liked the what was it, the wave made of fish. I thought was like visually cool. There's like some cool visual things that they did. Yeah, it's not like my favorite children's type film, but I think it's a solid like it fits that role well. Like I think it's cute, it's funny, it has likable characters, but wild. Definitely a wild film.
Mhm. I have Nausicaa at number 12. slipped it right in there after realizing I'd forgotten to rank it. I liked this one quite a bit. I remember like really thinking that the main character was a badass and liking that like post-apocalyptic type of vibe. I feel like I remember thinking that it could have been like edited down a little bit, or like it was just like
Yeah.
just a little too long, like 20 minutes longer than I wanted it to be. But overall really liked it and liked kind of seeing that like starting point for the studio, and can really see how like other movies were like influenced by it too.
Yeah. Number 12, I went with Whisper of the Heart. I there was a lot of aspects of this film that I enjoyed, and I think this movie in particular, but Ghibli in general does like these younger like relationships pretty well. I liked how the main female character, like, she had these passions and she wanted to find herself, and she wasn't like, sometimes these movies do this thing where like the romantic interest is like they drop everything for them and stuff like that. And I felt like this movie they didn't, and it was like she was motivated by the guy that she liked because she wanted to be successful, and she saw like qualities in him that she liked. It didn't feel like an unhealthy relationship, which some of these do. Obviously, we've talked about Poppy Hill. um yeah, I just think that there was a lot of these simple moments, and it was kind of like a really sweet and engaging story.
Number 11, I have The Boy and the Heron. This is probably the movie that could shift the most on a second watch through, because I feel like seeing it in theaters, one without subtitles, that's always hard because sometimes I'm like, I need to know what they're saying exactly to get like the full thing. Visually, it was really, really good, stunning animation. Like some of the fire sequences were really well done. I still think it was hilarious that when the character, the pirate woman, is gutting that like bug, Hannah just went, oh, like in the audience next to me. She had like a visceral reaction. It made me laugh so much. Like I was cracking up. It was so funny. But I think you could see where it drew a lot from other films. Like there were a lot of elements that kind of all filtered in. Like I feel like Castle in the Sky was there, and like Howl's Moving Castle, like elements of that. I still am blown away that that heron was not Willem Dafoe and was Robert Patterson. That I couldn't believe. I thought it was Willem Dafoe the whole time, and then I got to the credits and I was like, "What?" I was like, what's happening?" I think it's a good film, but I feel like some of the messaging and some of the story were hard to follow on a first watch. And I think if I watched it a second time, like maybe it'd be easier for me to kind of find those like links and like subtle kind of messages that he put in there, because it feels very much like a, I don't want to say like a retirement, but he's like passing on to the next generation is kind of what the feeling that I got like from, is kind of the message you wanted to convey through this story. But this could definitely transition the most, I feel like, out of all the films.
Yeah, I'm excited to rewatch that one. I also feel like I
Mhm.
didn't quite know where to put it because it was so new. But
Yeah.
for 11, I had Whisper of the Heart. This one was like a pleasant surprise for me. I'd never seen it and didn't know anything about it going in, and was like really pleasantly surprised. Like I really liked the story. I thought the romance was really cute, the kind of like teasing, bantery like vibe that they had going. And yeah, I really liked the like female friendships in it too, and that those were really like sweet and not like, I feel like a lot of times in like those types of movies it's like they're fighting over the guy or it causes a fallout, and there wasn't really that kind of tropey storyline. So I don't know, overall I really liked that one, and I kind of wish I had seen it as like a kid too.
Yeah, because I
Mhm.
felt the same. I'd never seen it, and I was like very surprised by it. And I sometimes I wonder if I had seen some of these movies as a kid, if I would feel differently seeing it as an adult now. But I don't know. I did enjoy that one. Number 11, I went with The Wind Rises. I love a movie that's like essentially a character study on one person. And I know not everyone does. It's something that I enjoy, like seeing a character develop over the course of their lifetime. And I kind of felt like that's what this movie was. It's like a very like realistic, simplistic movie. And it's like there's sad parts. There's like this moral dilemma of like, if he created something, is he then responsible for how it's used? It kind of reminded me of Oppenheimer in a lot of ways as well. But yeah, I think the story definitely could have been developed more. I feel like there was this weird plot with the sister, like the sister was only in a couple scenes, and I felt like she should have been in more with the way she reacted to like his wife dying and stuff like that. But I like the other characters. I'm obsessed with John Krasinski, so hearing him voice one of the characters made me very happy. Yeah, and I just liked how it showed this character as like a flawed human, and not perfect. And I don't know, I just enjoyed it.
Yeah. Number 10, I have Whisper of the Heart. And I pretty much agree with everything you said, is that I was also very pleasantly surprised. I thought I picked the wrong version. I watched this in Japanese, and I was surprised when Country Roads in English by Olivia Newton-John started playing, and I was like, did I pick the wrong one? And then I was like, oh, nope, that's just, they really wanted Country Roads to be in there. Plot relevant song. I really liked a lot of the story. I agree, the relationships I thought were really well done. I realized like when I was watching it that the scene when they're playing like singing Country Roads while the like his grandfather and his friends are playing, I had actually seen that before, but out of context and not like in this film. So I had no idea it was like part of that. And I was like, whoa, I've seen this one specific scene before and had not connected it. But I agree. I think it was like really interesting study on passion, youth and passion. And like with her, it was like writing, and he was a violin maker, right? Was that what his was learning to make violins or woodworking, something like that. Um, but I liked like that type of dynamic. I thought the fantasy elements like of her writing the story added an interesting like kind of the Baron and like having these elements that made it not super like based in reality. Like there's a little bit of fantasy in there. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised and really enjoyed watching this film. And I think if I had seen this when I was younger, maybe it would be like more sentimental to me and higher up, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like I would have like related to that character a lot as a young person. For 10, I feel like this is a little controversial. I had when Marnie was there. I have all the same complaints about the movie, but for some reason I liked it. I don't know.
That's
Like
fair.
I going in knew nothing about it and was like, "Oh my God, this is so great. There's like LGBT representation in Ghibli. This is so hype. This is such a cute little like lesbian ghost story." Yeah, and then it's revealed that it's her grandma, and it's so devastating. And I just wish I wish they'd made the choice to either make it less romantic and be her grandma, or to like truly have it be some kind of like weird time travel-y romance. But they went for both instead, which is a little unfortunate. I still liked the movie a lot though, and like the kind of where you don't know if it's like a time travel or a ghost or what's happening, like that kind of like adventure element to it, and liked the characters. I think it would be ranked higher if it wasn't, the way things went down with that plot twist. But
That's fair.
I feel like I can like look past it because I still enjoyed the movie.
Yeah. If the movie had gone the way that we all thought it was going, it would have been like in my top 5 for sure, because I was so into it. And I would agree, like the whole like mystery of like, is this time travel, what's going on, like that was so intriguing. And then all of a sudden in one reveal it was all gone for me. I was like,
in
no.
one fell swoop.
It was no more lesbian ghosts, just
no,
it was
just good old grandma ghost.
No, Hannah, I was laughing so hard editing where you're like, I have never held Ruth's hand that way.
Oh, yeah.
Ruth being her grandmother. And I was dying, and like, no one else is gonna get that except for us, or our cousin if she listens to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm being serious. I never would have held grandma's hand the way that girl was holding her grandma's hand. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous where like if that had been a male character, everyone watching that movie 100% would be like, this is romantic, and then would have been like freaked out that it was her grandpa. It's like, just because it's her grandma, like
it's like it doesn't count because it was like, oh, it was another female character. I'm like,
yeah. I was reading something about that, and I don't remember if we had talked about it, but it was like the idea that the story was written as if, you know how like older British books are very much like women are all like super friendly and like have that type of vibe, but they're not, well, they're just friends, but like is it the idea is that like are they actually like gay, or is it just like the story is told like that because that's like the female friendship way? So it's like there's might be some undertones of like maybe there's a little bit of a little sprinkle on the side, but that because they did adapt a book, like I think it's like a British book written in like 1940 or something, but based in like 1800s or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I was like, that's interesting. that maybe they could have adapted it how they wanted to,
Yeah.
but they didn't. They didn't.
Okay. Number 10. We're on 10, right? Yeah, 10.
Yes. Yeah, you're
Okay.
last for 10.
Number 10, I had Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. I really liked this movie because I thought like the villains were really good. I thought that like the stakes felt really high because it was like a very like serious matter. And I think that the ending was a bit weird to me. Like I think I remember feeling like it should have been shorter, but also the ending felt too rushed for how long the movie was. And I think you can see a lot of the beginning of the studio in this movie. It kind of reminds me of like Toy Story with Pixar, where you can see like those elements that then repeat in a lot of the future movies. So as a first movie for this studio, I think it did a really good job. And yeah, I enjoyed it overall.
Okay, so for number 9, I really struggled with where to put this one, but I have Grave of the Fireflies. This was one of the hardest ones for me to figure out where to rank because this is not a movie you can rewatch. I honestly, the first time I watched it, I was pretty sure I was never going to watch it again, but then we did this and I had to rewatch it. And I was sad. But on the other hand, it's also like an incredibly impactful, fantastic film. Like it is an incredibly well done film portraying war from a child's perspective. And it's really brutal and really devastating. And I cried both times I watched it and I told Hannah she had to prepare herself that like she should watch it when she's not like she's in a good headspace because it's really depressing and I gotta like decompress. I had to decompress for a while after watching it. But it's hard because it's like some of these films are so like joyous and happy and like make me feel good, and then this one is not that, but it's like it makes me feel uncomfortable, but in a challenging like good way. And I didn't feel like I could put it any lower than 9 because I was like, okay, where do I want to put it that it feels right, like it feels like a proper placement of this, but isn't too low. So I went with 9, but it's a really fantastic film. Just it is a hard watch. So yeah.
Yeah, that one's so hard to rank, and especially in
Yeah.
comparison to the other the other
Right.
ones that we're
Yeah.
ranking with it. It's like, oof, that one's such a tough watch, but so good. For 9, I had Princess Kaguya. I This is another one I hadn't seen and was like very pleasantly surprised by. I realized halfway through the movie that I had like either read the book as like a child or had it read to
Okay.
me. Like the
Hmm.
part where all the like men are talking about the different like treasures and then she's like, go find them. I was like, wait a minute, this feels very familiar. And then the other part that I remembered was where like the boy is getting like beat in the street as she's
Oh,
like driving
okay.
away. And then I was like, oh, I've definitely like consumed this story in some format before. But I really enjoyed the movie. The art style was super cool. I know you guys had already talked about the scene, I think, but the one scene where she's like, there's that name party for her and
Hmm.
she's like in the thing and then all the men are like talking about her and she like runs out and the animation style changes and it's like all like I don't know, like messier animation and like I just thought that scene was so good. Like I could like feel the female rage and I was like,
Mhm.
yes. And like after that scene, I like literally had chills. I was like watching it with my husband and we both just like looked at each other like that scene was so good.
Yeah.
So I feel like that scene alone like pushed the movie up for me. But I really liked it overall. Want to fist fight her dad a little bit just for everything that went down. Like hated him. He's the villain of this movie. But yeah, I really liked it. I would definitely rewatch it.
Yeah. Yeah, that scene is like might
Oh,
be one of my favorite animation scenes of all time, or just scenes in general
So
of all time.
good.
It was so good.
yeah. It was like I was blown away. Like when I watched it, I like had to like I like sat back a little. I was like, "Oh my God, what am I watching?" Like I had to and I immediately I like wrote something down. I'm like, "Yeah, best scene, best Ghibli moment, best animation I maybe have ever seen in my life." Like I've witnessed
Yeah,
something here
so
today.
good.
Number 9, I'm sorry, Alyssa. Kiki's Delivery Service.
Ah,
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
knew it. I knew Hannah was gonna put this low. I knew it was gonna
Yes.
happen
I
and I was
knew
gonna
it's in
be
my top
sad.
10.
It did. You know what? It's in your top 10.
Yeah.
Acceptable. I will allow it.
Honestly, when I got to my top 10, there are a good majority of these movies, minus one or two, that could switch in any order any given day.
Yeah, but
So
I knew when you have the
yeah,
choice, Kiki's is gonna go lower.
I will say, I remember not liking this movie as much when we were younger, but when I watched it again as an adult, I did like it more than I thought I did. I feel like there's a lot of really good themes in this movie, and I don't think I recognized them as a kid, of like dealing with depression or loneliness or self-doubt and stuff that like everyone can kind of relate to at times in their life. I think that there's a really creative storyline. I do think my issue is like the middle to back half gets a little bit slow for me. And I think I maybe need to watch this movie again. It could change rankings based off that. But I do like that the movie doesn't have like a lot of filler, and it does, for the most part, it flows pretty well. I think if I watched it again, it potentially could move up. I've it's been so long since I had seen it, and I was kind of surprised by it, but there were also so many other movies that I was surprised by that they just went a little bit ahead. So
That's fair. I will allow it.
okay.
Just this once. Yeah, number 8, I have The Tale of Princess Kaguya. I agree. I really was surprised by this movie. I didn't know anything about it, and I also had never read the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, I think is what it's based off of, is the story. That's interesting though that you had like a reference for that, because that, like, I feel like that's happened sometimes where like I'm somewhat familiar with the source material that like a media is based on, and then I'm like, wait a second, I kind of remember this. So that's fun that you had that. Yeah, I thought the story was really interesting. The animation, of course, like incredible. I liked the family relationships. I mean, the dad was terrible. We hate the dad. He can go. But a lot of I think the character moments were really well done, really interesting. A really different type of story. And I liked like, yeah, like a like it was in like a very specific time frame. Yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about it. Would definitely watch it again, would recommend. One of like 3 movies that I was like very happy to have seen, having gone through every film in this studio, because I probably wouldn't have otherwise, because I've never heard anybody talk about it. I've never like heard anything about this movie beforehand. So really pleased with it. Good film.
Yeah, same. I don't think I ever would have like known to watch it unless we were like kind of going through this and doing all of them. I will say the one weird thing that I just remembered was at the end, that dude was like so ready to leave his wife and child. I was a little
Yeah.
like, oh, that's your child that you have forgotten about, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
He's like, I found a better wife. Sorry, I'm out. Bye. Awkward. It's not awkward. It's,
Yeah.
it's fine.
For 8, I had Princess Mononoke. I really like this movie. I think the only reason I'd put it like not higher is just like it's a little bit long for me. Like there were parts where I was like, okay, this movie's running a tiny bit longer than I wish it was. But I feel like I'm kind of a stickler about that. So I don't know. I really like the obviously like animation, and it's like very beautiful movie to watch, and like all of the different like characters, like most Ghibli movies, they do a great job with. And the music, I think you guys had mentioned that too, like in your
Mhm.
other episode, but it was really great for the movie too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 8, I have Princess Kaguya. I also had not seen this movie. Some of my favorite animation of any movies I've seen. It just feels like a very unique movie, even to Studio Ghibli. And the story really hasn't been done. The ending was really unexpected to me, but in like the best way. And I felt like the ending felt like justified, and didn't even really feel like that sad to me. It just felt like almost like positive in a way. Even though she was leaving, it was like she was finally getting to be free from certain things. And I think maybe my only complaint was that it felt a little bit long at times, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm so glad that I got to see it. And yeah, that one scene just blew my mind. I still think about it
I do
sometimes.
too.
I'm like, wow, that scene.
That is a good way to put it, like female feminine rage. Like
Yeah.
that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I also sometimes think about that and I'm like, oh,
Oh, so good.
incredible. Good stuff. Number 7. I have Howl's Moving Castle. This point on is really where I had to make some cuts and I had to make some choices. I really like this movie. I think it has a lot of really good things. Hannah and I talked about that breakfast. Oh my God, some of the best looking bacon and eggs I've ever seen in my life. I want to eat that. That was our other speed ranking that Hannah had thought of, was ranking like the meals you'd most want to eat from these films. That would be up there. Like that's a top tier meal from these films. I really like the character dynamics. I think it works to kind of have this like somewhat smaller cast like in the castle and then have these like smaller side characters. The scene where they're trying to climb the steps is still like some of the best comedy in any of these movies. I love that scene so much. I think the character of Howl is really interesting because he's a pretty boy and not like a masculine man. And I think that's kind of a different take than we see from a lot of men from the studio. I like Sophie a lot. I like this like dynamic of her being turned into a grandmother and then like going between different ages depending on like how she's feeling. Yeah, it's a really solid film. I just in the lineup I was like, all right, I think this is where it's gonna go. Don't have any complaints.
Yeah,
Great
I feel like
music also. Great music.
Yeah.
from here on out, it's pretty much like they're all bangers, and you just
Yeah.
have to like, it's like personal preference of like where they end up falling.
Mhm.
I had Boy and the Heron as number 7 though,
Okay.
so I
Nice.
really liked it. Thought the voice acting was really good. Like I was like shocked, even like going in, like I knew it was Robert Pattinson, and I was like, are we sure he's the Heron?
Yeah.
Like that's really like this is
Yeah.
Twilight Robert Pattinson. Like he did so good. And I feel like the story, I like got really emotional at the end. I was like, this is very like touching, like the whole like story with like him and his mom is like the younger version, and then
Mhm.
like kind of like deciding to like accept his stepmom as like part of his family and stuff, I thought was really sweet. So yeah, overall, I it's another one where I'm like, I feel like the ranking could change, and I almost was like, it might even end up being higher, but it's so new that I'm like, I've seen all these other ones like multiple times, and I've just seen it like the once, so it'll fall here for now, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
be determined.
Yeah, because we haven't released our episode about The Boy and the Heron. First of all, normally when we do these types of like just covering one films, they're about 20-30 minute recordings. This one's 53 minutes long just for
Yeah.
one film. I'm working on the edit now, but it is, I think we both said we teared up near
Yeah.
the end. I think the emotional bits were well done. Yeah, I think that's definitely the movie that I need to see a second time to kind of have a better idea, because there's just so much going on that it was like I feel like I lost some of it. And so the only thing I knew is I knew the voice cast, but I didn't know who voiced who. So when I knew Willem Dafoe was in it and I knew Robert Pattinson was in it. So when I heard the Heron, I was like, oh, that's Willem Dafoe. Sounds like the Green Goblin. Great. And then I kept being like, I wonder which bird is Robert Pattinson. Like I don't know which one he is. And then I got to the end and I'm like, he's the hair, and my mind was blown. I was like, there's no way. And then yeah, great
I
voice
know.
acting.
Like imagine a celebrity not just doing their own voice for a
Yeah.
character,
Yeah.
but actually voice acting.
And apparently he came with that voice. Like he went to the audition, he's like, hey, I have these voices I've done in my phone. Like he recorded himself doing that, and they were like, yeah, sounds good. And I'm like, great for you. He was just like, yeah, I want to do this voice. I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Love that for him.
Yeah,
Wild.
we support
Okay.
him.
I do. I remember I turned to you at the end of the movie and I was like, where was Robert Patterson? Was he
Yeah.
even in the film? I was like, I didn't hear him. Yeah. Good job by him, I would say. Okay, number 7. Alyssa, I also put Howl's Moving Castle, which I
Okay.
thought it was gonna end up
Okay.
higher. I think it's one of those instances though where they're just all so good that you kind of have to go based off personal preference. But yeah, the soundtrack is really good. I think it works having fewer characters and having one main setting, because a lot of the movie is just these interactions between these characters. And I think that's why it really works. I really like the designs too, and like the colors they use in the animation. I think this is another one that's interesting, like how they show the effects of war on certain individuals. There's this weird part with the ending with this scarecrow man.
Oh yeah, where he turns into a real person. He's
Right,
like,
which
marry
that
me, and she's
yeah,
like,
that kind of
she's
felt like
taken.
unnecessary, but yeah, I just think that It's a really well done movie in a lot of different aspects, and it's definitely one that I remember a majority of the scenes from. When I think about the studio as a whole, a lot of those scenes come to my head from that movie.
I would agree. All right, this one feels bad. Feels bad. Number 6, I have My Neighbor Totoro. This one hurts me, but this is where it felt right. This movie is one of those nostalgic movies I watched a lot as a kid. Like, I'm pretty sure we had rented this from Blockbuster. I don't know how many times, at least 10. I have this on DVD. Hannah got it for me for my birthday like 10 years ago or something. So it holds a special place. The songs, the cat bus, Totoro, Stand in the Rain. It gets pretty. I like how it gets dark. Like, you think one of the sisters is dead, like she drowned. You find her shoe. So there's this really like kind of somber element with like the mother being in the hospital and like one of the sisters being missing. But I like the way it kind of tells the story. Just kind of like life in this new kind of like more rural home and area, and just the relationship between the sisters. Like Hannah and I talked about this because like we both relate to the sister that fits the age grouping. Like, I relate more to the older sister. Hannah relates more to the younger sister. And it feels good. Like, it feels good every time I've seen this movie. It's just lovely. Big fan. Love Totoro. It's no wonder he's the mascot of this company. What's not to love?
Sure. I feel like I definitely relate to the like watching it and like having an older sister, and like I definitely relate to the younger sister too, and
Yeah.
like can just like see that in the movie.
Yeah.
For 6, I had Castle in the Sky. This is one that I like didn't see as a kid that I really wish I
Okay.
had, and then like watched as an adult and I was like, oh, this is dope. Really liked all the characters. I like the thing that Ghibli does where you're kind of like introduced to side characters as almost like a villain, like with the Sky Pirates, then they end up being like kind of bros as the movie progresses. I feel like that's like in a kind of like a thing in a couple of the movies that I like. Yeah, I really like enjoyed a lot of the aspects of this movie, and like just that kind of kids going on an adventure, like coming of age type of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, number 6 is Grave of the Fireflies. This is like the only movie to me where rewatchability doesn't really matter because I don't think this movie is rewatchable. I don't think it's meant to be rewatchable. I think that it's very hard to watch and it's like very uncomfortable at times, but it's also it's so like realistic that it makes me uncomfortable to watch. But I just think it's like a really important film to see. And I think that it's a really beautifully told, like tragic film. And there's these small moments of like happiness and joy within this tragedy. And I think that's very true to life. I don't know. It's hard to rank because it's so it's so different than a lot of these films, and a lot of my mindset was like how often would I rewatch this movie, but I don't know. I think it's just an important film, and I don't think I could justify putting it much lower than like 5 or 6, just because it feels so important to like society to see. Kind of like almost related to like Schindler's List, like how I wouldn't go and rewatch Schindler's List a ton of times, but I think some of those movies aren't meant to be rewatched.
Yeah. All right, it's finally time. Number 5, Only Yesterday, it's so interesting to see how low you put this movie, because when I watched this, and I've never heard anything about it, it like struck a chord. Like, I was in. I'm like, this is amazing. I think what worked is I really liked this character, this lead. And I agree, she is like an 80-year-old in a 20-year-old body. I think that is very accurate. And I'm like, I'm glad you said that because I thought that, but like I also love that. Like, I'm into that as
Yeah.
a character. I really liked and we talked about it when we covered it, like the soundtrack was really unique. Like, they brought in a bunch of, I think it was like Bulgarian or Hungarian, like
Mm-hmm.
vocalists, and really, really interesting choices made with having the voice actors and actresses do their lines and then animate to their voices. So they didn't like have them record, like they made the voices match with that, which I thought was really interesting, like a strategic choice they made. But then when they were children, they went back to doing the animation and then recording. So it was like slight differences between those two age groups. I agree. The flashbacks, I think, are by far the best part of the movie. I really resonated with some of those. Not that I think like they related to me, but like I could just like feel the way like the way she saw those memories. Like the one where her dad slapped her. Like I felt like they did so much without saying anything. And I think the romance works because it's not a romance until it is a romance. For me, like I was like, it's there, but it's not important until it is important. I do, however, have to say Max needs to get their shit together because they closed out of the movie while it was still going because the movie runs through the credits. And I was like, how will I, she gets off the bus or train, I don't remember what she leaves on, and like that's in the credits. And I'm like, why would you be like, all right, movie's over, and I'm still trying to watch it? Like, what if I had gone away at that point? I would have just thought, oh, she went home. That's it. But I was so like shocked at how much I liked this movie, knowing nothing about it. I've never heard anyone talk. This is another one where I'm like, I've never heard anyone talk about this movie. I don't know anything about it. But for some reason, it just really resonated with me. And clearly, because Hannah hasn't said it yet either, when we talked about it, it also, I think, resonated with her a lot as well. I think it's also kind of like the character study type thing you said with The Wind Rises. Like, I feel like that's kind of here with this one. But it like really hit. And I'm really glad we did this just so I could find this movie. Because like this is like it's a gem, hidden gem that I would recommend to people who like that type of film.
Yeah, I'm wondering if because you guys both liked The Wind Rises and that one quite a bit, I'm wondering if it's that like type of movie
It
Yeah.
could be,
that you're
yeah.
more drawn to. There's definitely like things about it that I liked. Yeah, so I feel like having it kind of at the midway, but so I put Howl's Moving Castle for 5. It's a great one. Really like the whole like design of the castle and like Calcifer and all the side characters I feel like are really strong. Howl I would also classify as a zaddy. Um, I really like the I forget what the like exact line is, but where he's like, "Oh, I've been looking everywhere for you," and then that ties back into like the end of the movie. I was just like, "This is the
Right.
epitome of romance." Like I did like a middle school project on this movie when
Oh,
I originally discovered it, so
okay.
I like it quite a
Nice.
bit. I think it's a good one.
That's weird. I
Mm.
also watched it in middle school. It's the first time I saw it. I think I was like in seventh grade, maybe. So like
I
13-ish
think that's the first time I saw it and did my
age.
project on it.
Yeah. So you were doing your projects on Howl's Moving Castle. I was doing projects on New Moon. That was my middle school book project.
What a book.
Quality, clearly
Quality.
one is they're right in line with each other, in quality sense. New Moon is a Robert Pattinson classic.
I mean, I was there for those like book releases at midnight
Oh
for the
yeah.
Twilight books, so
Yeah.
can't judge.
Yeah. That's funny though.
All right. Number 5, Alyssa, I've only yesterday. You were correct that I hadn't said it yet. I think this, now that I think about it, this and The Wind Rises are very similar in like style. And it is kind of like this character study. I think my problem is that I relate to being an 85-year-old trapped in a 27-year-old's body. Like that's me. So I think I relate to this character, which I don't know what that says about me, but
She's
here
a
I
working
am.
woman,
That's true.
she's independent working woman. She's got her shit together.
That's me, you know? But I didn't know anything about this movie. I never heard anything about it. No one had ever talked about this movie. So I think it almost goes higher on my list just because I didn't have any expectations and it didn't like it definitely went far above what I thought it would be. I like the movie, like not being afraid to bring up the taboo topics. We talked about how they talked about a period and it wasn't like this weird thing. And I don't know. I felt like the ending wasn't too predictable, which was nice. I felt like I agree. I really liked the past scenes more than the present, but I was invested. I definitely was invested, and I thought I did enjoy the transitions between the past and the present scenes. And there was a few things that maybe could have been done better, but as a whole movie and like following a character throughout their life, I think it was done better than The Wind Rises. And that's why this one is higher up for me.
All right, number 4. I have and 4 and 3, I literally just changed right now. I've been going back and forth for like the past 4 hours. But number 4, Princess Mononoke. I think this film is fantastic. I watched it for the first time. We rented it from the library, and I was surprised at how gory it was because I was like, this is like the same place that did like My Neighbor Totoro? Like what? What's happening? I think the story is really well done. I do think I agree, however, that it is like it drags on like a little bit too much. It could be a little bit tighter, like especially towards the end, I feel like. But the music is some of the best music in general. The soundtrack is incredible. I think I talked about when we were talking about this film that I got like chills when like right at the beginning when like the music like builds like right into like the title. And I was like, I'm in, I'm ready. I think there's a lot of really good characters. I like what is it, Lady Eboshi? Is that the one who's in the town where she's employing all the women? I think that was her
Yeah,
name.
I think
I
that
think
sounds
she's
right.
like one of the best characters they've written in general. Like I really liked her being like a villain, but also like this really interesting look at like this type of role that you wouldn't normally see. I like that it is not a romance. There's like a potential for being a romance, but the way it ends is they kind of go their separate ways, and that's like kind of where we leave it. And I kind of liked that that was the ending. It wasn't automatically a romance because I feel like a lot of the time you pair two people, of course they have to be opposite gender because it's the studio, but you put them together that generally there's going to be some type of a romance by the end of the movie. So I liked that that wasn't really the case. That wasn't really the focus. I think made that more interesting. And I liked a lot of the character like creature designs. I thought were really interesting. The clothing, the weird like squiggly noodle, what were they, boars or whatever, noodly boars, and that long-necked spirit that's just like ugh, reaching up. So I thought it has things has a, oh my god. I think it has a lot of really interesting, well done elements that I really like. I'll just leave it at that. Solid film.
For sure. I had four as My Neighbor Totoro. I actually like just rewatched this one last weekend and like every time I watch it, I'm just like, man, what a great movie. Like
It like
definitely I think it's so cute, like the sisters and there's I feel like this one and like Spirited Away and Kiki's, I'm just like, man, how did Hayao Miyazaki just like capture the like essence of girlhood and like being a young girl so well? Like, I don't
Mhm.
know. Obviously there's other people that worked on the films too, but yeah, I just like love the sisters dynamic and like I love their dad in it being like very different than like the stereotypical like dad that you see in movies. I feel like he's very like present and like fun and like a very like kind dad, even though he's like in a stressful situation. And then obviously like Totoro, Cat Bus, great, amazing. Love them.
yeah, dad is a top tier dad.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, and the songs are just like
Yeah,
Oh
they're
yeah.
so
amazing as
cute.
well. Like
So good.
both the like Totoro, like that one, and then like the main like theme too. They're just like great.
That's like in remembering watching those films, it's the songs that I really remember the most. Like the songs in the cat bus, like in like what I remember from a child, it's like those things really stand out.
Hmm.
Yeah. A little Russian nostalgia.
All right, number four, I have Princess Mononoke. This movie is like, I was just thinking about it, it's kind of the exact opposite of Porco Rosso in that it's like all strong female characters, and maybe that's why I relate and like it so much. But yeah, I just think like the soundtrack's really good. I really like the villain. I think it's a really compelling villain. She has a lot of like reasons for why she is the way that she is, and they actually take the time to develop her as a character, which is cool. It is very gory and like disturbing, but I also think some of these movies, like which one? Pompoko kind of like hits you over the head with like the environmental aspect. And I felt like this movie does a good job of like making points, but not making it so like hit you over the head. It's kind of just woven into the story. I think it's maybe a little bit too long, but I don't really mind because I think the movie flows pretty well. And I liked the side plots as well. I thought the side plots were done well.
Yeah. All right. Top three. We made it. Final three. I think currently we each have two overlapping films, I think. Just two. I think between the three of us, like we only have two films that
Oh, you're saying
overlap.
between all of us.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
between all of us. Yeah. We won't all have the same top three.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which is interesting. You know, I think it's fun because it's like these long lists have so much more potential for differences, which I think is really interesting. But then when we get near the top, I felt like it was a lot more similar once we got to a certain point for the most part. All right, number 3, I have Kiki's Delivery Service, which big fan, love this movie. Like when I was a kid, I think this was probably my favorite Ghibli movie. We had a Disney VHS tape that had the trailer for this movie. And so like when I think of the movie, I think of this trailer and not the film itself, like from my childhood. But I love it. It's so like I think you said, yeah, he captures girlhood like so amazingly, and especially because she's this like little witch going out into the seaside city trying to make her mark. I like that she struggles to find like inspiration and like has like kind of like a depression, anxiety, like, you know, she's just not feeling it. She struggles to fit in, she struggles to feel like she belongs. And I like that it's slow. That's what I think, Hannah, we had talked about that like you thought it was a little too slow, but I like really like how slow it is. I like that it's just kind of like slice of life. You know, she's just doing odd jobs, delivering things, makes her own little delivery service. I think it works for me to have it be that style. I love Gigi. Gigi's great. I think this time, or the when I had watched it previously, I did in Japanese, but I think Phil Hartman as a cat is great in general. A good time. I just like I don't know, I just like really like her as a character. I think she's a really fun character. I think it's a fun story. I you know, the ending is fun that it's just like here's this blimp, go save the day. Like here's how we're gonna end it. We had to have the big end set piece. But I like, yeah, I like how slow it is. I like that it's kind of simple. It's not too like actiony, like adventure. It's kind of just like a small story in a city focused like one character and like the support around her. So I really like it. Have always liked it. Solid film.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't think about it that way, but slice of life is like a great way to describe that movie.
Mhm.
For sure. I had 3 as Grave of the Fireflies. I don't know if it's just because I like to be in pain. Like it was so hard to watch, but like also so good. Like just it's just so devastating, so heartbreaking, like all the things we've already said, and like cried so much when I watched it. I've still only seen it the one time. I feel like at some point I would like to watch it again, but it's definitely not a movie that like you're gonna be rewatching all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like so good. I feel like everybody should have to watch it like once as
Yeah.
like price of admission to being a human. Like it's
Mhm.
fantastic, but also really devastating and hard to watch and uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
powerful movie.
Yeah.
I still can't believe that it was a double feature with My Neighbor Totoro. Like people were watching
That's
Gary the
wild.
Fireflies, and then immediately you get, "Hey, let's go!" Like you're really vibing, like
It's such a
songs. It's
shift.
just like little figures dancing around, and I'm like, I'm trying to imagine me like having to sit through that, and then having to watch that, and like just so drastically different. That's wild to me that they did that.
The emotional whiplash that these poor
Yeah.
people must have
Insane.
gone through in that theater.
And I'm like, maybe that's why Totoro came away as like a big Studio Ghibli movie, is because people were so depressed about Girl the Fireflies that then they were like, oh my God, this is so amazing. It's so cute. It's so uplifting. Like it was a whiplash effect, really
Yeah.
propelled it to be at the top. And they were like, we got a new mascot. We got it.
Like, oh, thank God, something to cling on to after that
Yeah.
movie.
I just like, man, that would depress me. I'd be so depressed going into, I think I wouldn't like My Neighbor Totoro if that's how I'd watched it. I think that would make me feel sad.
Yeah.
No. It's my number 3 though. Moving on to number 3. It is My Neighbor Totoro. I feel like this is probably the one I've seen the most, and I feel like it's very rewatchable. I also like that I got the same feeling watching this movie as an adult as I used to get as a kid. And I feel like that's not something that I can say about every single movie. But yeah, the dad is really cool. He's like he doesn't like dismiss their feelings or their thoughts, which is really cool. I think the sister relationship, I always relate to movies like that because obviously, spoiler, we're sisters, but you didn't know.
Spoiler.
Yeah, I think there's sad moments and there's a lot of like underlying sadness, but you never feel like hope is lost, or at least I don't feel that way when I watch it. Totoro's just an icon, you know. just an icon. And yeah, I just have a lot of memories and like nostalgia with this movie too. But yeah, I just love it. So good.
It's a great film.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moment of truth. Number 2 is Castle in the Sky. This is a movie I had seen as a child. It was interesting because I rewatched it a couple years ago and I hadn't seen it since I was like maybe 7 or 8. And I didn't really remember a lot, but I remember like in rewatching that, I don't know, like all this like memory came back, how much I enjoyed it. Like same thing with the soundtrack. The soundtrack I think is really good. I like that it's kind of like the steampunk like European countryside vibe going on. Like it feels like we're in like a German village or something like that with the beginning of the movie, or Italian village. I can't remember what we said, some type of village was the inspiration. I really like the two leads. I think they're really interesting and their dynamic is really good together. I like that it's kind of this, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it almost feels like the mechanical what was the new like Legend of Zelda game that it's like you have the mechanical stuff with
Oh,
like
Tears of the Kingdom.
yes, Tears of the
Yeah.
Kingdom. Yeah, like that and like Breath of the Wild where it's like you have this like mechanical beings existing in this kind of like not like old-timey world, but not modern day, but it's like kind of steampunky like ancient land. You have these like ancient characters. The Sky Pirates are great. I'm a big fan of the villain turned like enemy of my enemy is my friend type situation. I remember that guy like shot off her braid, and I was like, this guy is hardcore. Like the other villain is hardcore. But yeah, I think just like the story is really well done. I think it holds attention for the entire time. I think I definitely have a little bit of like bias because I saw it as a kid. I'm gonna admit to that right now. But yeah, it's really solid. Really like it. I think that kind of story vibes with me. Like that really like draws me in, that type of story. So Castle in the Sky, number 2.
Nice. I had Kiki's as number 2. Another one that like watched a ton as a kid, so there might be some bias and like nostalgia there, but definitely feel like it's just like the type of story that I really enjoy, like young heroine going out into the world and like, trying to be independent and kind of that like coming of age, like making her way in the world. And then yeah, I really like how they deal with loneliness and depression, like even though she's doing like the thing that she wants to do, there's still those elements of like this sucks sometimes and like that sort of thing. Yeah, and do like kind of that like slower slice of life quality to it too, but still has some of those like bigger moments. Definitely one that I like always rewatch and enjoy.
Yeah. Number 2, I have Castle in the Sky, which means we all have the same number 1
We
movie.
do.
So yeah, Castle in the Sky. I thought I had never seen this movie. I have horrible memories, so I don't remember like 90% of the movies.
Oh,
Alyssa knows I don't remember 90% of the movies I've seen as a kid.
the amount of times I've told Hannah she's seen a movie and she goes, I've never seen that. And I'm like, we were sitting next to each other. I don't know what to tell you. You've seen it. Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that like it's a very heartwarming movie. It's very entertaining. I think the story's told well. The characters are just like you can't not root for the characters. It's just like a fun movie, and I feel like this was one of the only movies where I watched it and then I was like, you know what, I want to watch this again like soon. Like I really enjoyed it. I think the back half of the movie is actually really strong, beautiful, and like stunning to watch. The ending feels tied up. The soundtrack is really good. It's one of the better soundtracks. And I just really didn't have any complaints about this movie, which I think justifies it being in my top 2. But I do think there is a better film, and we all agreed upon that.
Yeah. I like felt a little bad because going into doing this, I was like Spirited Away is my favorite Studio Ghibli film. And then I got to the end and I was like, I think it's still my favorite. I think it's still number 1. And we could all just kind of discuss this one since it's all of our number 1. It's
Mhm.
so good.
It's
It's
good.
everything about it is good. The whole story, the soundtrack, the music. Chihiro, I think, is like a great young heroine character because she grows so much during the film. Like she's not some of these films, like I feel like the characters start and end kind of in a similar place, but this one you can like really feel her growth from like when she enters like the tunnel and then when she's leaving with her family. So love it.
Yeah, same. Love everything about it. I would definitely say it's like probably one of my favorite movies of all time, not just like favorite Ghibli or
Mhm.
favorite animated. Like I just love it. One that I watched like a million times as a kid too. So, but I feel like it's one where like you watch it as an adult and like still holds up so well and like definitely have like shown it to people that have only seen it as an adult and
Mhm.
they've
Mhm.
also loved it. So I think it kind of transcends those like age groups. I remember like as a kid really liking it because it had elements of it that were like almost a little like scary or like
Yeah.
not like truly scary, but like you're watching and you're kind of like, ooh, spooky. And I feel like as a kid, I was like, man, when am I gonna get like spirited away and have like a cool dragon boy and work in a bathhouse? Like it's that kind of like fun element. But yeah, this is one that I feel like we'll watch like again and again.
Yeah. It's also hard to ignore like the impact this movie had on bringing like Japanese culture and Japanese movies to an American audience, because I feel like we talked about this when we did our actual episode, but I feel like this movie, a lot of the background we talked about was like how much it paved a way for future things to come to an American audience. And it's one of those movies where if someone's never seen a single Studio Ghibli movie, I always tell them to start with Spirited Away, because I feel like it's one of the more, some of the Studio Ghibli movies I feel like can be pretty like polarizing, or like some people might not enjoy them, but I feel like Spirited Away is one of those movies where it's simple enough that a lot of people can enjoy it, and it's just really well done. It's hard to find negatives, and I don't really think I have any negatives about it. But yeah, I think as a whole, like even the impact it had on Japan and like bringing movies and TV shows and anime and all that over to an American audience as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely always, this would be like my recommendation too
Yeah.
for anyone that hasn't seen any Studio Ghibli or like hasn't seen like anime in general,
Yeah.
like wants to dabble.
Yeah.
It's a good place to dabble. I think it's very accessible, I think
Yeah.
is maybe the way I put it. Like it's definitely a fantasy, you know, because the bathhouse and all of that, that's very like not real. But I feel like it feels grounded enough that like you can be in the world and follow what's going on, which is important. Yeah, I think still to this date, it's the only I don't know if it's still the only foreign film that has won animated or Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. I know some of them have been nominated, but I think still this is the only one that's won. Boy and the Heron is nominated, Academy Award. It won the Golden Globe, so that's fun. As an update, I don't know when this ranking will come out, but currently nominated for Academy Award. We'll see if it wins. It might. If it could be like the year that something came out and Big Hero 6 won. Remember? We were
Oh,
talking
it
about
was
that.
Princess Cayuga.
Right, and I was like, how
Yeah.
dare, that is absurd.
Yeah, Big Hero
I
6
like and
beat
I
that
like Big
movie.
Hero 6, but it's not like there's no
Not
comparison
that
here.
much. Yeah.
Not
No.
that much. Yeah, I don't like it that much.
I'm trying to think what else
Um
came out this year that would even compete with Boy and the Heron.
The Spider-Man Across the
Oh
Spider-Verse
yeah.
was 2023. And then I think Puss in Boots Last Wish I think was 2022, I think. I'm pretty sure it won this past year because that movie was pretty good too. Yeah, I'm not sure what else came out. That like Disney movie that I'm sure did not do well and probably did not get nominated.
Oh,
Wish.
Wish.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of mixed things
Negative.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pixar, what did Pixar put out? We went and saw Elemental.
Elemental, which was, it was okay.
It was fine. I think
Not
Boy
the
and the Heron
best.
was better than Elemental,
I would
I
probably
would
agree with
say.
that. Yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts about Spirited Away?
Just that you should watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yes, would
Glad I love
recommend.
it.
100%.
Solid English voice cast too. Like it's the voice of Lilo from Lilo and Stitch. If you love that movie, that's Chihiro's
Oh,
voice actress,
I
which I
didn't know
love.
that.
Big fan of that.
Alyssa, just to say the nominees for
Yes.
animated, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, The Boy and the Heron, Robot Dreams,
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Elemental, and Pneumonia, Nimona, which was a Netflix.
Oh yeah, that's supposed to be good. I haven't seen it, but
Okay.
that's like I think that's a foreign film as well.
Yeah. Those were the five. So
Okay,
yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it. I'm glad we finally were able to make this happen. And I'm glad we had a good amount of variety in our list too.
Yeah.
Because that feels good when it's like, I like to have the different opinions. Hannah and I sometimes we have the same brain, so it gets a predictable. I think there's been a couple lists where we've literally had the exact same thing
We
for every
have.
single one, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what a surprise! It's the same movie.
Well, I feel like it says a lot about the studio too that like they can have such variety in lists because I
Right.
feel like a lot of their movies are, you could argue, are really good movies. So I think
Yeah.
you're going to get personal preferences and you're going to get stuff like that and queer baiting bias and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. But just like with Pixar, if somebody out there's favorite Studio Ghibli movie is Earwig and the Witch, we need your opinion. We need
We
to
want you
know.
on this
We
podcast.
want you to be on. Just the same for Cars 2. We're still waiting for someone to tell us Cars 2 is their favorite Pixar film, and we'd love to talk to you. If you're out there, send us an email, r3podcast@gmail.com. It's our email. If you want to hit us up, tell us why. Because we need to know. We need to understand your brain. Because that one doesn't make sense. The other, pretty much every other movie, if you told me it was your favorite, I could see it. Not that one.
Mm-hmm.
Not
that
it.
one you need answers for.
We need answers.
We do.
Hannah, do we want to go through our lists again? Or I can't remember when they're this long. I think we don't do it normally.
Not really.
Yeah. I think, do we want to just go top 5 maybe?
Yeah, we can run through our top 5.
Or top 10 maybe? Something like that.
Run through your top 10.
Okay. So number 10, I have Whisper of the Heart, then Grave of the Fireflies, Tale of Princess Kaguya, Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro, Only Yesterday, Princess Mononoke, Kiki's Delivery Service, Castle in the Sky, and number 1, Spirited Away.
At 10, I had the controversial when Marnie was there. Then Princess Kaguya, Princess Mononoke, The Boy and the Heron, Castle in the Sky, Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro, Grave of the Fireflies, Kiki's Delivery Service, and Spirited Away.
Number 10, I had Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, Kiki's Delivery Service, Princess Kaguya, Howl's Moving Castle, Grave of the Fireflies, Only Yesterday, Princess Mononoke, Totoro. So we butchered that. Castle in the Sky, and then Spirited Away.
Too many T's, Hannah.
Too many T's.
Too many T's.
Got to me.
If it makes you feel better, Hannah, 2 independent people spelled my first name wrong today. So that's where we're at.
There we go.
Everyone on this side of the state puts an I in my name. I don't know why. It just consistently happens. It's always
That's
very
so weird because that's not a common
Yeah.
spelling of it.
I guess over here it is. Never seen it before moving over here, but
Specific to West Michigan.
I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it was weird because it was twice. It was like someone at work in like a document had my name spelled wrong, so I had to change it myself. And then I ordered food and my name was also spelled wrong. And I was like, here's where we are today.
That's fun.
But yeah, we did it. It feels good to be done. I will say this has been really fun, but these ones are difficult and time intensive. There's a reason we've only done this twice in what will now be in our 4th year.
Yeah.
To be finished. Like we clearly started this in 2022 and we did finish in the year of 2024. So,
I really appreciate you guys bearing with me as I tried to finish all these movies
Oh yeah, no
at the last
worries.
minute.
You're
It was
fine.
a really great excuse to like watch them all and get to like go through every movie. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join us because I was like, I wanted to make this happen. I was like, I know I would like told you, okay, we're gonna do it now. And I was like, just kidding. We're gonna do it 6 months from now. And then it was like, how about now?
And I was like, I'm still not ready, so you have to wait for me.
Yeah.
Even though you've given me years.
We just finished up like
December.
Yeah, so we've just finished 2 and
Yeah, in a recent time span. Yeah, it was weird to like sit on it because I didn't finish my ranking till today. So I've just been sitting. I've thought about it periodically and I had like grouped them into like chunks of like, okay, here's the ones I want near the top. Here's the ones I want like in this area, but it was hard. It was hard to rank.
Yeah,
I think this feels a little different than Pixar, where I feel like Pixar, it was much easier to put like different groups in different categories.
Yeah.
Like between the first half and the second half, I feel like. Whereas this one, it was more like, okay, I want these ones kind of near the bottom. I think these ones kind of for me fit here. Like I feel like there's a lot of variation that can happen with these
Yeah.
movies.
I think Pixar too, because a lot of those movies I had seen at least once.
That's true. We had seen way more of those.
Minus the newer movies, but like with this, a lot of these movies, I think I'd seen less than a fourth of them. So that's kind of hard too. It was, good time. I am glad to be done because it's very exhausting. Ooh. Yeah. But yeah, we will be back with a new topic soon. I'm not making any promises when we'll actually be back. If you have any suggestions for shows you would like to see, you can email us at r3podcast@gmail.com. We also have our Instagram, our Letterboxd account. That's it, I think.
Yes, I will have updated the Letterboxd account to reflect our Studio Ghibli rankings by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy, for coming on and for sharing your opinions with us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks
We're glad I've been missing a guest. Like, we had been missing having guests because we missed a guest the entirety of 2023. We were like, we need the era of the guests must come back. So
this was so fun. Thanks for having me on and giving me the excuse to like go through all the movies too.
Yeah,
of course.
That's why we do it. Yeah. We need some sort of motivation.
That's why we've seen every single Fast and the Furious film.
That's true.
And
we're now super fans. Now we actually look forward to going to see them, which is kind of embarrassing.
It's funny. We love Fast and the Furious now. I'm like, I get it. I understand.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll be back.
We will.
Goodbye.
Someday. Goodbye.
We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat.
I'm trying to decide, are you going or am I going?
You can just go.
Okay. I was like, I'm like, are you moving? Are you not?
I don't know.
We alternate, but we don't keep track. So then sometimes it's like, who did it first, last?